They've got these blinders on because their blinders are, I want more power, I want more political power, and they just can't think outside the box.
Hey, if you want to screw me, at least kiss me first and take me on a date. You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senator?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. This really is the belly of the beast. And today we have another incredible family and friends guest episode. In studio with us is Dan Schultz of the Precinct Strategy, the great Dan Schultz of the Precinct Strategy. Thanks for being back with us in the studio, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Royce. I really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. Been a while since we had you, and I know Professor Penn had you on.
Yep. Yeah, I was here a few weeks ago with Professor Penn. Yep.
Yeah, and we got you back in today, and we're happy to do that. First, I want to ask. We won, okay. Sorry I didn't get a chance to see you with Professor Penn. I didn't watch the entire episode, but
Yeah.
I saw that you were on. So we won, and that's great. You know, victory is always good. Winning's fun.
Right.
But we certainly have a long ways to go. The Precinct Strategy and people being more involved in the BPOU, Republican Party grassroots process definitely paid dividends.
Absolutely.
But I would want to get your assessment on where that is overall here in Minnesota. For example, I still see some problems, but I want you to give me a glimpse at where you see that process overall, because it's obviously still a long way to go with the Precinct Strategy.
Yeah.
So where do you think we are with that now after Donald Trump victory?
Well, Dave Penn and I were talking about it just before I came down here, and I'm not optimistic. And the reason I'm not optimistic is I say the same thing every time I speak to anybody. Okay, so I believe, God helped us to get Donald Trump back into the White House.
Sure.
I have a 3-step strategy for saving the Republic. Step 1 is to pray. And I recommend 2 Chronicles 7:14. And to paraphrase it, it goes something like this: if my people, God is speaking to Solomon, to Solomon's people, God's people, chosen people, and he tells him, if my people will turn from their wicked ways and seek my face, I will hear from heaven and I will heal their land. That's essentially the encapsulation of it. And but we've got to get back to God.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were praying lots of different ways, and I think that helped immensely. And then step 2 is we got to recruit precinct committeemen. We got to take over the Republican Party.
Right. Bring that mic a little bit closer to you. I want to make sure
Okay.
move it closer to you. Don't get close to it. Just pull it back.
Okay.
All
right. Thank you. And we've got to fill up all these vacancies, and we're not making any progress on it.
So you're saying we're still not making any progress on filling the vacancies,
right?
in your opinion,
right.
Yeah.
And then the 3rd step is repeat steps 1 and 2. Pray, recruit precinct committeemen, repeat. Pray, recruit, repeat. And the numbers, the numbers don't lie. And I could give you numbers from all across the country, but essentially, when you take the averages, there's about 400,000 of these slots, volunteer slots in the Republican Party apparatus that nobody knows this stuff because they don't teach civics anymore.
Right.
And I was lucky. I'm old. In 1968 and 1969, I got a civics education in public school, and they taught us about the Constitution, the state constitution, and how the parties worked. And I was really interested in how the parties worked, so I paid attention and remembered it all. And most people, if you went to the Mall of America and with a clipboard and a camera, and just as people went by, say to them, have you ever been to one of your local political party committee meetings, monthly meeting? Most wouldn't even know what the hell you're talking about because they don't know that these parties, these committees even exist. And the reason they don't exist is the RNC doesn't want them to know, so they don't tell them. And the state parties don't want them to know, so they don't tell them. And most of the county officials, they don't want them to know, so they don't tell anybody. It's up to us. So I know why they don't tell us. It's not in their self-interest. They want to stay in power. But the good news is over half of these slots on average, these volunteer slots, can be filled just by showing up.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-hour a month commitment to go to, assuming your committee meets monthly. Not all do, but most do. It's a 3-hour a month commitment, and you don't have to go to every meeting. Where the pay dirt comes is at the time of the primary elections, when turnouts are only about 20%. If you want to get an incumbent out, an incumbent rhino, fake Republican out, you find out who's running against them, and people are more likely to run if all of the precinct committeeman slots are filled, and they're conservatives. Then these people will come out of the woodwork and say, hey, I might have a shot because I can ask all of these conservative precinct committeemen to help get out the vote for me. And it works because I've done it for a candidate. And but that hasn't happened yet. That outpouring, that filling up the 200,000 vacancies hasn't even begun to bear fruit yet.
Yeah.
What I've been doing, what others have been doing to promote this, we're not getting the numbers. And I like to say, with respect to politics, it's all about numbers. If you're going to win an election, it's all about who gets the most votes. Right. And so there's ways to boost turnout, the old-fashioned ways that work. And it goes all the way back to Abe Lincoln. He figured it out. And it takes a little bit of effort. And so that when I said I was able to successfully defeat an incumbent rhino for a candidate, I didn't ask anybody to do more than 3 hours of grunt work. 1 hour worth of phone calls, 2 hours of taking, after the phone call, a flyer to the house, whether they answered or not. We knew these were the lower information, lower propensity voters. And we just dropped a flyer off and said, here's our candidate, here's the incumbent. You can see on these 5 key issues or 3 key issues where they stand. We can replace the bad guy with the good guy, but you got to vote in the primary. We boosted turnout a little bit. We won in a landslide. So it can be done, but it goes back to the preamble of the Constitution. We the people.
Yeah.
We the people are going to save this republic, or we're not. And the next 2 years are extremely critical, just like the prior 4 years were. But we didn't fill up the precinct committeemen then. We didn't 4 years prior to that. I wrote this little book here. I'll just hold it up real quick. See, you can go to my website, precinctstrategy.com, to learn about it.
I don't want towards this way.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about it, but I want to show you. It's big print. If you can see that, maybe you can't see it. You can read this in 30 minutes. And the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution is in the back. And the name of it is How to Get into the Real Ball Game of Politics. Where you live. Why? To help President Donald J. Trump make America great again. Very catchy title. How to get into the real ball game of politics. That's party politics.
Right.
Where you live. That's your local Republican committee. That's where the power vacuum is. There's 168 members of the RNC. Every single one of those slots is filled. All of the executive committee slots on the state parties, they're all filled. Down at the county level, all the county officer slots, they're filled. But where is there a 50% deficit in participation?
We the people.
It's we the people, right. In the people who elect all those people I just mentioned, all the officers of the party. They're not leaders. They call themselves leaders. They'll have on their websites, the leaders of the county committee, the county central committee. They're not leaders. They run meetings. precinct committeemen are the leaders. They're elected by the voters, and they're the liaison between the voters and the officers of the party, all the way to the RNC. And we've got to turn our mindset upside down so that the people are up at the top. They elect precinct committeemen, and then I've got graphics that show this, and then they elect county committee officers, state committee officers, and they elect the people who serve on the RNC. If we change the base of the party, that upside down pyramid, if we change it at the top and fill all those vacancies and have a 75% voting majority in the precinct committeeman ranks of the party, the apparatus of the party, we change everything.
Absolutely. Well,
And we've got to do it.
Well, okay. So here's the question.
Sure.
Why aren't people so your theory of the case is that in that read of it, the country is much more conservative than we see, or maybe than most would think.
Yep.
Which is reflected probably most in what they say is the lack of Christian vote. Somewhat 30 million Christians they estimate aren't voting, which means if they're not voting, they're probably not involved in the party. I mean, that's just
right.
Well, we know they're not,
right?
Because there's hundreds of thousands of seats. There's 30 million Christians. If even 1/10 of one were involved in that demographic, then we'd have a Republican Party full of Christians.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, just
that
on
would be a
face
very
value.
good thing.
So, but they're not doing it,
right?
And your average American citizen's not doing it,
right?
And so, I mean, obviously,
Donald Trump's not doing it,
and he's not saying
he's
it.
endorsed. He hasn't. If you go to my website, precinctstrategy.com, on the homepage, you're going to see he endorsed my strategy.
Yeah,
I was able to get to him with the help of Steve Bannon, Steve Stern, the flag shirt guy, Liz Harrington, and
shout out to Steve Stern,
and shout out to Steve Stern, and also Mike Lindell helped us,
of course,
and there were
Mike
others,
Lindell.
and there were others. Excuse me. He endorsed the strategy, but I've yet to find, and I've asked people, send me. Now, he's done it in small groups. He told Steve Stern in a small group with some others. I think it was at Mar-a-Lago, but it might have been at some other event. I think if we would have done this precinct strategy in the lead up to the 2020 election, I think I would have won in 2020. And he would have. We would have boosted turnout, even with the machines. Because if you do it right, you can defeat the machines, but we got to get rid of the machines. How are we going to get rid of the machines? We're going to get rid of the machines by getting new state legislators. How do we get new state legislators?
Right.
We have to elect new state legislators, because the existing ones, the conservatives in the state legislatures, there's 22 states that have what's called a trifecta. A Republican conservative governor and a Republican conservative majority in the House of Representatives and the Assembly, or whatever they call them, Senate, whatever it is.
State Senate and House.
Yeah. Why haven't they gotten rid of the machines?
Yeah.
Because they're in on it.
That's the telltale sign.
Yeah. So we have to replace them. We can't yell and scream at them. We have to replace them. And that's what the precinct committeeman strategy is all about. And I want to say one thing before I forget.
Yeah.
This cross, pal, I love these. It's got the stars and stripes on the Christian cross.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you want to scare the hell out of leftists, you let them know you're a Christian and you're a patriot. You really want to scare the hell out of them, you marry up this with becoming a precinct committeeman. That is the best way to scare the hell out of them. We populate the party with Christian patriots, Christian nationalists. I'm a Christian and I'm a nationalist, and I've got it in my Twitter profile. But the left thinks they can use that against us somehow. Are you kidding me? What's wrong with being a Christian, and what's wrong with being America first?
Everything.
Yeah, right. To them,
to
everything.
Them, everything.
That's what scares the hell out of them.
Yeah.
And we can think of it. 100,000 conservatives in the party. This is all explained at precinctstrategy.com and in my book. There's about 100,000 conservatives, about 100,000 not conservatives. So there's about 200,000 slots out of 400 that are filled.
Half, 50% filled.
50% filled.
50% America first.
Yeah, 50% of those filled, and so they're fighting constantly with one another.
Oh, you don't have to tell me.
Right. Well, what happens if we the 100,000 go out and recruit 2 more each and fill up the ranks? Now we got a 3-to-1 advantage over the others.
Okay, well let's
That's what we got to do.
Of course, and I agree with you. Now,
and you asked
go ahead.
why isn't anybody talking about this? Well, there's reasons. The RNC doesn't have anything on their website about this, and they never will until I'm RNC chairman, because they don't want new people. They
But you
just
think
don't.
but you think Lord doesn't understand this? Is it possible?
Yes, I don't think they fully
So
understand
you're
it.
saying she's not doing it intentionally. She doesn't know. I
Well,
mean, she's new too.
She's just the vice chair. She
Right.
doesn't have. If you read the bylaws of the RNC,
Right.
she has zero power.
Right.
It's the other guy who's got all the power.
Right. But I mean, even Donald Trump,
Yeah.
it's more of a lack of understanding
They
how
don't-
critical it is.
Right. It is critical.
Well,
It
and
is-
here's my thing with Trump is, God bless him. Obviously, he was touched by God. People who deny that, they probably are atheists.
Yeah.
Maybe, or
right.
there's severe lack of faith and discernment. Just 3 bullets miss your head at that distance. Somebody wants you here.
Right.
Right. So but even still, he can get a lot done, but at the same time, he does have to be very forward thinking.
Yes.
And how we restructure the party under his leadership now.
Right.
Because he is in a position of real leadership as the commander in chief.
Yes.
But,
Right.
But we
and he is the leader of our party.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he has to start thinking, and it's hard. I say that with a grain of salt because let's be honest. The country's, wayward to hell, and there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a full load just to be able to do it. But I think he's doing a great job. I mean, I listened to State of the Union.
Oh, he's doing a great job.
And, we're getting 10, 12 things done a day. So he's off to a good start.
Oh,
I'm not saying that
absolutely.
there's going to be smooth sailing here.
Right.
But there does have to be some time and energy allocated towards restructuring this party the right way. So in 4 years, really it's going to be about 3.
Yeah.
2.5, where things start going haywire.
Yeah.
We can keep the party going in the country going in the right direction. The one thing that I worry about is he can say what he wants, and he did enough to win. Personally, I think they held back on the cheating the machines because
I do too.
he won the narrative. I mean, it was too obvious, too many people watching.
They were afraid that there was going to be conservatives taking to the streets once.
Which is the last thing
tarring
they want.
and feathering people.
Right. That's the last thing.
Yes,
They
exactly.
don't want any conservative,
uprising,
public outcry.
Right. Like they do all the time.
Exactly.
And never get prosecuted.
Exactly. And so I do think they held back on the cheating, and I do think they believe they can wait him out. That's my opinion.
I do
think
too.
Because they know how this the people who we're really up against, this establishment, they know how the party process works. Eric Weinstein made a great point, and if you know anything about Eric, he's a free thinker, but he's not a far right wing ultra MAGA Republican.
Right.
I mean, he's like nominally a Democrat. Now he was co-managing director of Thiel Capital, and you could say that Peter Thiel's a Republican. I mean, it's kind of waffly there with him too, I'd say.
Yep.
Well, let's say conservative.
Right.
Let's say if he's America First, waffly. Peter
Sure.
Thiel at best. But he's not a MAGA guy.
Right.
And he said that the entire party process on both sides have been mostly used to prune the primaries of populist candidates.
Yeah.
And so those people who we're up against, they know how the party works.
Right.
So is it your theory the case that the quote unquote leaders of the party are strategically keeping people out? And if that's the case, what is your prescription for people who try to get involved in the party but are functionally blocked? Like, for example, I try to join my local SD. I tried to join the party in my local BPOU, and I was actually blocked.
Wow.
It's because if you get a hold of them, there's an email process. Or something you email them,
Right.
You can show up to a BPOU meeting and say, "Hey, I want to be involved." But the leadership of the BPOUs can actually just ignore you.
Right.
And so,
and they do.
And so, is it Donald Trump and the RNC that have to? I mean, we're going to do ICE, and God bless it. Anybody who's here illegally, let's get them out. We're going to, skim through the IRS in the entire federal government and get rid of these people, and I support that fully as well. But should there be a sort of executive branch to RNC link that creates an accountability process for all of the BPOUs across the country, or would that be too centralized? What do you think of that?
Um,
Because how do we make sure that these BPOUs aren't stonewalling all these individuals that want to come in?
the way you do it is there's strength in numbers. So you've got to build outside the party apparatus a group of people, like a conservative caucus. You get all of your conservative friends, and you do the due diligence ahead of time. You learn the terminology. You learn when they meet. You learn how many slots there are. You learn how many slots are filled, and you try to get a sense, okay, of the slots that are filled, what percentage of them now is it 60, 70, 80, 90% fake Republicans, go along to get along Republicans who are really rhinos? Or what are those numbers? And then what you do, I have a graphic which shows it, where I have a stock photo of a line out the door at a building. And up above the building, entrance, I put Acme County Republican Committee. And then I had an arrow towards the line out the door. Conservatives not yet precinct committeemen volunteering. If you show up with 100 people to a meeting that only has 20 people at it, because the committee might have, let's say, 80 people, but only 20 or 30 show up, and usually you have to get like 35% for a quorum if you want to conduct business. Sometimes they don't even get that many to show up. But what if you had 100 conservatives that have already networked with one another, and you can do that on the conservative or the precinct strategy communications and collaboration platform that Robert Beadle's built for us. You could do that online ahead of time, so you're not having to do it by email or telephone calls. You just get everybody onto the platform. You build a chat room, and let's say it's a BPOU 24, just to make up a name, BPOU 24 takeover project. And then you get everybody online, and you go, okay, here's the terminology. It's called precinct chair or precinct delegate or precinct committeeman, whatever it is in your state. And most states don't call them BPOUs. They're called precincts.
Right.
And then committees with precincts. But the terminology varies from state to state. And on my website, I've got some state information. And then you show up in mass and you say this: we're good Republicans. We always vote Republican. We're here to help. And you don't wear a hat like this, and you don't wear a PC button. You go just in regular clothes, no badges of anything, nothing. And you just say, we're good Republicans, and we want to volunteer to elect more Republicans. How can they turn you away if there's 100 of you? They can't.
Right.
Because the threat to them would be, well, what if the 100 all, because eventually you can run. The appointment process, that's up to what the bylaws say and the state statutes. Most states, they don't have to appoint anybody. But you figure out when the election is. Now, if you're in a caucus state, you go to the caucus meeting, and you all go to your precinct caucuses, and you go, again, in numbers great enough. Usually if you just show up, you're going to win by default. Right. And then you go to the county meeting, and now if you've been networked and communicating with one another, you know who the candidates are that you want to replace the existing chair if it's a bad person. The chair is there's two officer positions that are most important: the chair and the treasurer. All the rest have no power. The chair and the treasurer, because the treasurer will write a check if it's allowed by the bylaws, that the chair says, write a check for this, that, or the other thing. And usually there isn't very much money anyways.
Which is another problem, but
yeah, right.
For another day.
For another day. But first, we got to populate the party. And if we can pull that off, we have a chance to save the Republic. I usually say at the end of my podcast, listen, I can't guarantee you that if we carry out the precinct committeeman strategy, and which we haven't done thus far, and fill up all these vacancies, that we're going to save the Republic, because I don't know what else is going to happen. But I guarantee you, knowing what I know about history and the fall of republics, when you get to the point of apathy where nobody really wants to do anything, like, oh, somebody else will do it, then what's going to happen is, moving forward, Donald Trump got elected, but what happens when the midterms come? If we just reelect all those rhinos that are in the House and Senate right now, after that election, they're not going to play nice with Donald Trump anymore.
Right.
They're going to start doing whatever they want,
it's
just
coming.
just like it happened
coming.
before with Ryan
Yep.
and then McCarthy and McConnell, and everything's going to go to crap.
Yeah.
So we need to have a resounding set of victories in the primaries. Every incumbent has to win 2 elections. The first is the primary. That's where turnout is only about 20%. If we can boost turnout of Trump supporters, 77 million voted for Trump. If we can get just a sliver of them to go vote in the primary when they didn't before, we can take out all these rhinos and,
Right.
and elect somebody better. And that's what we got to start working on
Well,
right now.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I want to say one
Go
other
ahead.
thing.
Yeah.
You asked me, why isn't this out there? Why, well, the RNC has nothing on this on their website and never will. Most of the state parties don't. Arizona's pretty good.
That's where you are, or where
I
you
used
were.
to be, yeah.
Right.
I'm back. I'm in Wisconsin now. There's nothing on the Wisconsin website about it.
Of course.
And Wisconsin is kind of like Minnesota. It's just not much going on in the party. But there could be if conservatives would flood it. But they don't know how to do it yet. But I'm teaching them. But
you want to come to oh wait, that's in Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's in Wisconsin. Yeah.
If you feel like it, you can start with Minnesota. You want to come tag along for some of these
yeah.
BPOU conventions.
For sure.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that'll really tell you how the party apparatus feels about what you're trying to do. I know what we're going to have happen.
Right.
They're not going to try it. They're going to try and not let you speak. And that should be the grounds of which people
there you
really
go.
see. Hey,
there you go.
They
and
don't
then
want this guy.
we make hay with this now with X. See, we need to get all the PCs onto the conservative PCs onto X and use that as a means to communicate as well. And there are.
Well, before you go forward, what you're going to say about the RNC or people that aren't
recruiting.
There's another issue in here. We say it all the time, but it's not only the apathy. It's that there seems to be somewhat of a contempt towards people who do want to do something from within the party. It's almost there's apathy. There's like, oh well, we don't really feel like it. But then there's, hey, anybody who tries to motivate us even is considered persona non grata, is considered like Donald Trump said and Steve was talking about yesterday, disruptor. You're being disruptive.
Yeah,
even
that's
at
they
the party level.
They actually call you disruptive.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'll give you an example. I was when David ran for chair, SD45.
Right.
I was there, and I spoke. They let me speak. They let all the candidates speak, which is why I filed early. People were like, well, why did you file early? I filed early so I could go and speak at all the conventions with some authority. I'm not that I have the authority personally, but the conventions usually allow for candidates who are filed to come and speak.
Yes.
So I was able to speak, but what I witnessed at SD45 is just horrifying. One, Kathleen Folk, who ran for state senate in SD45, ran for chair, and she won against David. And it's not that David was beaten; he's my friend, and I think he would have been a much better chair. But it's who she is, and she was. I support Donald Trump. I support Royce White, our U.S. Senate candidate, but I won't say it publicly. And she's on tape.
Yeah,
she's on tape.
Yeah,
saying
I know.
This,
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I just heard about that. Yeah.
And so a gentleman named Mike Bang stood up early on in the convention, and he made a motion to allow for both chair candidates to speak for an additional 2 minutes. I mean, they were slotted to speak for 3, and he made a motion for them to speak for an additional 2. And this motion was overwhelmingly turned down.
Overwhelmingly turned down by the body?
By the body.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, and it's just like, in what world if you're saying, see, and this is what I call it conservatives, and I try and I make fun of it, I poke fun at it because you got to laugh to stop from crying some of this stuff, right? I could get to a chat room, I could go to a bunch of message boards, I can go to the comments on X, YouTube or Rumble, or if I find my way to Gab or wherever else there are people talking about conservative, Republican, Christian politics, and you see all of this passion
Yeah.
to talk. I mean, it's just opinions are flying. As somebody says one thing that somebody doesn't like, and oh my goodness, it's just like there'll be a day-long kind of tumble
Yeah.
of energy.
Right.
And then we get you to and these are the same people that are in the party now.
Yeah.
Don't be mistaken. These people are getting Fox News articles and notifications on their phone, and they're going in X under Ilhan Omar's post, and they're saying, Ilhan Omar, you're a commie, brother-loving, whatever.
Yep.
And they get to their party, Senate district, BPOU, or whatever it is, precinct, and they don't even want to spend an additional 2 minutes to make sure the person who's leading their apparatus, their little section of the little corner of the country, is somebody who actually has the values that they complain about online.
Yeah.
Not even 2 minutes more. I mean, it's just so far, and it's just like, look, and I agree with all of the anti-American sentiment that the left is, spilled and trenched and kind of institutionally made normal. I get it, and everything's racism, systemic injustice, the whole woke ideology. I said we're starting to live in a post-woke, post-globalist America, which is a good thing. Donald Trump at the helm. But it just bothers me how much these people really, for lack of a better term, pretend that they have a problem with this stuff. If you're not willing to spend an additional 2 minutes, that's fine. But then don't let me see you on Facebook, kind of pretending that you care about this stuff, because you really don't.
Right.
Right? I mean, and push comes to shove. If you're not willing to spend an extra 2 minutes.
Talk versus action.
Right.
Talk versus action.
Right.
And unfortunately, many conservatives, they haven't been involved. They haven't been they think
But
talking,
we act like we're action-oriented,
they think
though.
talking is action.
But we pretend like we're actually action-oriented. You
Yes,
hear
right.
conservatives talk about, like, even Jordan Peterson is great guy, great mind, and he talks about us being very conscientious. The conservative mind is a very conscientious mind and a very industrious mind, right? So we kind of do the nuts and bolts, blocking and tackling, but that's just in theory. When or maybe it's in comparison to the left.
That's right. It's all theory.
In reality, if we did real blocking and tackling, this party wouldn't look the way it does.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So I say that in comments on X to Jordan Peterson occasionally, especially Victor Davis Hanson.
Yeah.
He'll be on and he'll make out this great argument about how this is wrong and this is, oh my gosh, this is, for in the future, if we go down. Okay. So Victor Davis Hanson, what do you propose we do about it?
Right.
That part never comes. Right. That's me. I always ask, what do you propose we do about it? He doesn't know what to do. It's real simple what we need to do. We need to fill up. First necessary step to save the republic is we got to fill up all those vacancies. So now why don't the people who you would think would want to have more people ask for more people, especially if they claim to be conservative and they want to recruit more conservatives?
Well, like I do. Conservative.
Well, in some cases, that's the point. But even the conservative candidates, most of them, not all, but most of them, I only know a couple that have. It was Senator Russell Pierce, the late Senator Russell Pierce in Arizona, and then J.D. Hayworth, who ran against John McCain. He had been a representative in the House, and then he decided to run for the Senate. I told him I was going to run if he didn't, and I called his hotline for his radio program. He was actually at that time over in San Diego, and I told him who I was. I said, I'm a West Pointer. I do not like John McCain. He needs to go. And he was waffling about whether or not he was going to run. I said, so I'm going to run. If you do not announce within like 5 days, I'm going to announce. He immediately called me and tried to talk me out of doing it. And then shortly thereafter he ran. But when he ran, he put on his website, if you really want to help me win and defeat John McCain, I need you to donate some money for sure. I need you to help get out the vote. Absolutely. And here's where you can get connected. But the absolute best way that we can send a signal to John McCain and simultaneously change the party within is to volunteer to fill a vacant precinct committeeman slot. That's what I really need you to do, and I'll help you do it. So it was him and Russell Pierce.
Let's make sure we get one on my site as soon as possible.
That's what we've got to do.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do. But
We're
see,
gonna do that.
most of those conservatives, they're afraid they're afraid that early on, before they announce that they're going to run for their whatever office they're running for,
They're afraid they'll be outflanked by a more conservative candidate.
Exactly. They're afraid that if I go out and recruit all these conservatives, then a guy comes in later, a gal comes in later and says, well, he's run before, or he's got this problem. He's running for his vested interests, whatever. I've never held office before. I'm more conservative than him. Then all the people that he recruited will pivot and go to the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't blame those people. I do not but that's why it happens. It's common sense. They think strategically. Well, I better not. I'm better off not recruiting right now. So they don't do it. So we have to do it ourselves. And if I can find candidates who will do it, I'll encourage them to recruit. And if you're the best candidate and you really believe that, they're not going to pivot to somebody else.
Right.
Be the best conservative candidate. Be best, as Melania said. And so there's all of these. The RNC doesn't want more people. County chairs down at the county level, even if they're conservative, if more people come in, if their meetings balloon from, let's say, 50 regulars to 150 regulars, now I'm going to have to go get a bigger meeting room, and oh gosh, that's a headache, because we're all volunteers in the party. The county chairs are volunteers. There's only a few counties in the country where a county chair gets paid because they've got enough money. There's only a few states in the country, like Florida, where the state chair is a salaried position, because Florida is so wealthy with wealthy Republicans that they donate enough money to give that person a pretty good salary, like $250,000 a year in an expense account. Arizona, if you're going to be the state chair, you better be independently wealthy or retired, because you don't get there's no money. Same thing with the Maricopa County Republican Committee, where 62% of Republicans reside. Every officer, I was on the county committee three times, and our chairman didn't have a salary. We paid if we had the money, we paid expenses for our executive director, who basically did all the work. Just managing things and buying stuff once in a while for party activities. But it's a volunteer position, and we've got to do it ourselves. And if we could get every one of the current 100,000 conservative Republicans to make it a personal mission this coming next 6 months or year, set a deadline. I'm going to recruit 2 more people by 6 months from now. And it's hard, but I have strategies for doing it. And they're on the communications and collaboration platform. There's resources on precinctstrategy.com for learning how to do that stuff. I did an inexpensive postcard strategy where I mailed out to 45 to 65-year-old Republicans who always vote in my precinct. Sent out 85 postcards to 85 households that had about 130 people in them that were these perfect voters, encouraging them in 2019 to become a PC, I'll drive to your house with the form, and if you sign up, you'll be able to go to the caucus in 2020 and vote for yourself to be a state convention delegate. That's where the real power lies. And then the state convention delegates elect the national convention delegates, the national committeeman, and the national committee woman. That's how we changed the RNC. I recruited 2 people. They in turn each recruited somebody. I had 4 vacancies out of 11. So 3 people, they got into their 80s, and they came to me and said, Dan, we just can't do this anymore. We want to stop. I said, no problem. Let me know if you know anybody. And then one person moved away. So I had to fill 4 slots. I got them filled. And that took me 2.5 hours to concoct and make happen. Um, and It's that person-to-person recruitment that is lacking right now. There's other ways to do it. You could put ads in newspapers. You could get on talk radio and talk about it. But I believe the best way to do it is to identify the perfect voters and reach out to them and explain to them how powerful this position is. Look, this is how complicated the precinct committeeman strategy is. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little bit of a glare. But, okay, this is about, and it's only the top half. This is all contact information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To change things, we must change the laws. To change the laws, we must change the people who make the laws. To get elected, your candidate must be on the ballot. To get on the November ballot, you must win the primary. To win the primary, you must get the support of people who make endorsements in the primary, who reliably vote in the primary, and to get out the vote of others in the primary. These people are the precinct committeemen. So action by doing versus inaction by just talking about politics. We got to do politics. And I was lucky. I got taught that in 7th grade way back in 1968 and 1969, but they're not teaching it anymore. So I'm trying to teach it. We're teaching it today with this podcast. This is what we've got to do. We got to spread the message, and then we've got to ask people, you've got to take some action. Sacrifice 3 hours a month. That's not, I tell people, I'm not asking you to go to Valley Forge for the winter. I'm asking you to do 3 hours a month, and you're going to learn stuff that you've never learned before, probably. And you're going to meet people that are going to become lifelong friends, people you respect. And then you're going to meet some people that you're not going to like at all. And if you enjoy the company of people, no matter who they are, and you enjoy examining like the human condition, like, okay, who's this? What's that? It's a great place to be, these meetings, because you're going to see all kinds of people, some really good, some not so good. And it's the way to save our republic. It's the first 3 words in the preamble: we the people. Nobody's going to do it for us. No, there's no knight in shining armor coming to save us. There's no silver bullet to save things. Like you'll hear people say, well, if we just had term limits, that would fix everything. Well, how are you going to get term limits?
Yeah.
The legislature, the House, the Senate, they have to vote for term limits. You think they're ever going to vote for
their own power
They're
down?
never going to.
Right.
They're never going to do it. And we have term limits. It's called the elections. Every 2 years in the U.S. House, we can remove everybody and replace them. And then in the Senate, 1/3 every 2 years. Over the course of 6 years, we can get rid of every senator and replace them. But I did a thing on Grok the other day. I asked Grok, tell me over the last 5 decades, for each individual House member and Senate member, what the percentage was of those who ran for re-election, what the percentage was of them having won their primary. But you have to win the primary in order to go back to the general election, which is all gerrymandered usually, except the states, um, for the senators, it's a whole state, but the U.S. House, almost every congressional district has been gerrymandered. You win your primary, you're back in. Primary percentage, win percentage, 95.6% or something like that. It was over 95%. That's the problem in a nutshell. But we can reverse that if we get enough people involved locally. It all starts at your local committee.
Yeah. So, and do you think, is this why the Democrats have had success in recent memory, as they do this grassroots piece of it very well? Is this is the Republican piece of it? The Democrats use um, uh, cultural Marxism and other theatrical, dramatic political movements as their machinery. All right, and then they do actually end up bringing them in the party.
Yeah, the leftists are really in the Democratic Party are better at it than if there are any conservative, quote unquote, Democrats left, they're just like the conservatives in the Republican Party. They don't know how to do all this stuff. The leftists know how to do it. The rhinos, who are fake Republicans, who are essentially Democrats, who are in our party, they know how to do all this stuff. We don't. And so then they've got an even bigger advantage, the leftists in the Democratic Party. Way back when, it was about 2010, my friend Steve Adler created some software that is called Vote Builder, and it allows every precinct committeeman in each state to communicate with every other precinct committeeman in that state, and then in their county, and in whatever other, if they have congressional district committees, and if they're state committeemen, all the state committeemen can communicate easily online on a single platform. He signed a non-compete agreement after he delivered that product. He's a software engineer or a programmer, and runs off of a database of all the voters, and you can do all sorts of things with it. But the best, most important thing for the grassroots people is you're able to communicate with one another easily, and then devise get out the vote strategies. Well, after his 5-year non-compete ended, he had revamped Vote Builder into a Republican version called RVOTES, the letter RVOTES, R Votes. And he had a website, rvotes.com. And he went to Michael Steele and Reince Priebus and had a sit down with them. And as soon as, and said, hey, the Democrats have the original. I had this non-compete. I'd like to license this to the RNC, and then you can sub-license it to your state parties in the 5 territories and DC. And as soon as he explained to them that the precinct committeeman would be able to easily communicate with one another, they showed him the door. They said, we're not interested. We don't have any software like that. The party doesn't give us any kind of software like that. The Democrats have. That's why they're better at it. But see, the RNC, the globalists on the RNC, they don't want the party taken over by conservatives because they're not conservatives. So we got to do it ourselves. Robert Beadle's built us the communications part. That's the Precinct Strategy Communications and Collaboration Platform. It's scalable. There's 16,717 people on it right now. I want to get 300,000 on it. We can get 300,000 conservative precinct committeemen on it and then using it, just sharing documents, setting up chat rooms, organizing, collaborating. We can take over the Republican Party, and then we can save the Republic. But that's the first step, and that's what we got to do.
Amen to that. I appreciate you laying that out for people, and it is the most important thing. I mean, I've always been a huge supporter of you guys, and as you talked about it publicly. We're going to get that on the site.
Yep.
We're going to also figure out what's happening here locally, functionally, to make sure that we're pointing people in the right direction.
Yep.
Talking about, let's take last night as we State of the Union address.
Yeah.
Is Donald Trump? You have this thing happening even in the MAGA movement, and there's sort of 3 factions, let's say, of the Republican Party. You got your neocon rhino faction, you got your America First light, and then your ultra MAGA, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And those ultra MAGA, and I consider myself to be one of them.
Me too.
Tough crowd to please.
I just took my hat off. I want to show everybody.
Go ahead.
I've been wearing this since Christmas. My kids got this.
It's a dark MAGA hat. I need one.
Yeah. And I don't know where they got it.
Yeah.
Man, it was the best Christmas present. And I've been wearing it everywhere. I've been flying a little bit, and travel. I've yet to have one person make a negative comment, but I've had scores of people say, I really like your hat. They'll come over and shake my hand because I'm wearing that hat. That's a good sign because it didn't used to be that way.
Well, I mean, we're a tough crowd to please, and rightfully so. My question to you is, now that Donald Trump has won, obviously to get legislation passed is going to be tough. And if the people who have proven in the past, because a lot of them are still in Congress and the Senate now, people have proven in the past that they don't really represent the values or the beliefs or the direction of the country that Donald Trump wants to go, is it more advantageous for him to create the coalition, or should he create the line and say, I'm going to put forward this legislation if these people don't want to go along with the America First program, then primary them all in 2026. Which one do you think is more important?
The latter. Here's what I would say if I was him. I stood up on that first stage, and I don't remember where I was, but I was down way on the end. Well, how many? Was there 17 people when he started out in 2016, and then over time, because I talked about my values and my conservatism, and it shrunk. It shrunk and it shrunk, and then I was in the middle. Very quickly, I was the front runner, and because I was speaking to the American people, I'm going to teach every conservative who wants to take on what, and then name the people who are the holdouts if they're up for reelection. And in the case of the senators, they might not be. But every House member, every 2 years, has to face a primary. And he should be talking about it as soon as he runs into this problem where they're not going to go along with him. We the people, all of the people in the United States, elected that guy named Donald Trump to lead the government. Okay? And if they're not, and we have a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate, we ought to be able to get everything done, because they're supposed to be helping the person that the American people elected. All Democrats, there were Democrats who voted for him. There were libertarians who voted for him, and he got the most votes. He got the popular vote. And he should be saying to his audiences, his conservative audiences, wherever he goes. Now this would be this would be when he's on the campaign trail. He can't say it while he's sitting in the White House or sitting in any government building or using government stuff. But if he's been invited to go speak somewhere in campaign mode, he has every right to say, this person, not a real Republican, it seems, not going along with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
We can take that person out in the primary, but you got to become precinct committeeman. We got to change the party from within. And the way we do that is we populate the party. He should be saying that. My experience is the rhinos are lazier than the conservatives, but the rhinos know how to do now. Look, we better get on the stick on this. What if the rhinos discover the precinct committeeman strategy and earnestly go find more rhinos to fill up all these vacancies?
And there's no what if.
Yeah.
This is going to be the resurgence.
Right. So it's first come, first serve. We got to do it now, yesterday. Yeah. We got to do it immediately. And we can do it if we, the people, get organized and united politically where we live in the best way, in the best place, in the best time possible. And that's monthly at our respective meetings. But we got to get, you and I and everybody else like us has to get that word out. I have a friend in South Carolina, Jeff Davis. He's in Greenville County, South Carolina, and they were having an event. And I talked about it on my podcast a couple of days ago. And one of the speakers was talking about activism, and he was like a talk show host on a radio, but the sense I got, he wasn't not a precinct delegate. I think they're calling precinct delegates. And they're getting ready to have their caucuses at the precinct level and so on. And it was like a Lincoln Day type event. I think it happened before the inauguration. And so everybody was happy and everything. And Jeff gave a shout out to me. And he said, yeah, we're all here. Many of us are here because of the precinct committeeman strategy and Dan Schultz and being on War Room. And it helped immensely. And all of us in the room, we've got to go out and recruit more people. We've got to have resounding success everywhere in South Carolina, but it starts down at the precinct caucus level. You got to go find people to come to your caucus meetings to elect conservatives. And South Carolina has a guy named Drew McKissick, who is the chairman now. He won by a very narrow margin 2 years ago. Well, they're going to have their attempt again to dislodge Drew McKissick. Drew, he knows how he comes off as he's really conservative, and he knows he's a political consultant. He knows the precinct committeeman strategy. I used to subscribe to his emails. I'm not getting him anymore, though, for some reason, because he must have figured out who I was and some of the things I've said about him. He's a nice man, but I've seen him on video treat people very badly, conservatives, because he's not really a conservative. But he got reelected 2 years ago. Why? Not enough conservatives in South Carolina are involved in the South Carolina Republican Party. We can change that. Those in South Carolina can change it if the people who really understand that it's the people who have the power, like you say, people are coming. We got to have more people coming.
Yeah. Well,
quickly.
Well, I'll say this. I'm committed and willing to keep recruiting people and telling them the urgency of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But the great part about it, and people, well, you lost this election. Are you discouraged? I'm discouraged. It's not personal.
Yeah.
It's not a personal wound against me. It's the brilliant thing about our founding fathers, you get the government you deserve.
Right.
And I tell people that, but you're not supposed to be able to tell people that. It's kind of like you're saying they create this narrative that you're not supposed to be able to get up in front of a BPOU convention or congressional district convention or Senate district convention and talk about conservatism. You're not supposed to be able to talk about borders. You're not, you shouldn't do these things. Don't talk about religion. But, we have to do it. I mean, there's really no other way. And so
we have to do it.
But at the end of the day, that may end up meaning that we lose too. And that's fine.
Right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to lose too.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can't be so afraid to lose that you're unwilling to tell the truth.
Right.
Because then what good does winning do?
Right.
Yeah. And that's the whole MO, right, that the Republican Party's become is, say, controlled opposition. I just saw Steve did an interview with a British media outlet. I think it's GBN News.
Yeah, GBN News. Yep.
Yeah, it was a great one. I actually think I'm going to just run the entire interview.
I may have seen that one too.
Yeah, I think.
And he talked about the precinct committee.
He did.
Yep.
And he talked about just the kind of the conservative or Republican brand itself, kind of how it's used as a narrative. And I'm seeing it. I see it firsthand. It's just, we get into these meetings and people are, Nikki Haley is, for example, I just recently found out that Julia Coleman, who is Norm Coleman's daughter-in-law.
Oh, okay.
Senator Norm Coleman from Minnesota's daughter-in-law, who, by the way, they give me a lot of criticism for losing this recent election to Amy. Norm lost the governor's race before he ran for senator.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just, but the point is his daughter-in-law gets up there at a convention because she's a House rep. She's in the House currently.
Oh, okay.
So they come and they let her speak on that basis, knowing good and well that she plans on running for the Senate seat. So she gets more time because she's a actual sitting state senator, which fair play to her. Getting into a lower house office will afford you some of that thing, just like me filing early. But she gets up there and she talks about being supportive of Donald Trump and, put a motion forward to bring Doge to Minnesota's state legislature level.
Yeah.
And come to find out, she was on or very close to Nikki Haley's presidential campaign or leadership team.
Yeah, yeah.
And Adam Swartzy's another guy, 21-year Navy veteran, ran for Congressional District 3, lost in the convention process, lost an endorsement in CD3. But he's another one that they're throwing out there. And he was on Nikki Haley's leadership team. So when I tell you, like, these neocon rhinos are reorganizing.
Military-industrial complex people.
Yes.
Globalist people.
To the max.
Yeah.
And
Forever wars people.
But they're so pro-Trump right now.
Oh,
so we got to be careful.
They have to be, yeah.
The people who you see, who are MAGA may not actually be MAGA right now.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say we should be skeptical. Oh, you're not MAGA. I mean, not a purist. But if you were on Nikki Haley's leadership team, I mean, it's safe to say in this last election, if you were with Nikki Haley in this last election, it's pretty safe to say who you were.
Right.
I'll take somebody who voted for Joe Biden who's like, you know what, this was a mistake. Joe Biden was an idiot. This was Donald Trump's right. I'll take that person before I take somebody who was on Nikki Haley's leadership team in the heart of the gunfire during 2024.
Right.
And they're here in Minnesota. And so I got a question for you. What'd you think about seeing Emmer last night stroll behind the president? Matter of a formality or?
I didn't see that, but right before now, you can probably direct people to this. I want everybody to watch. Dave just showed it to me before I came here because he was going to join us, but he's extremely busy today, and he said, "I just want you there." I asked him, "Would you come?" Yeah, I'll come, but I'm really busy. And so he showed me because Emmer's name came up because I met a lady, it was just last weekend. She said to me, "Well, Tom Emmer, he's a good conservative." And I'm trying to recruit her to get into the Minnesota party. I said, "Tom Emmer is a snake. Tom Emmer is totally against Donald Trump." And she doesn't know this stuff, and she's pretty clued into politics. So Dave just happened to instantly pull up that clip that he played of Emmer complaining about Donald Trump and all his nominees for all of these cabinet positions, and on and on and on. And then it cut to Dave on his podcast explaining just who Tom Emmer really is. So I didn't watch it last night. I didn't have time to watch it last night.
Yeah, well, but this is my point to you is, I mean, and this goes back to the president. I think there is somewhat of a responsibility or duty for him to distinguish between these people a little bit better.
I agree. I agree with
Why
you.
does he? I mean, what?
I'll tell you why.
Please, strategically.
Okay, if you're Donald Trump and you were running for the presidency and you knew that in Tom Emmer's district he had won his primary, and then it's gerrymandered. They're all gerrymandered. He's going to win his general, probably. Okay, but he won his primary. Why did he win his primary? Donald Trump doesn't know, but I'm hoping he's understanding that when these rhinos win their primaries, that means down at the local level, there aren't enough conservatives taking a guy like Tom Emmer out in the primary, and I haven't looked what percentage of turnout was there of Republicans based on their past voting history. Now you don't register with the party here, do you, in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay, so then it's pretty easy.
Well, we have open primaries, but you can register with the party.
Okay. So then you just look, what percentage of registered Republicans actually turned out and voted in the primary? And it was probably 20%. Why was it 20%? Well, because in his congressional district overall, the BPOUs, there's not enough conservatives in there banding together to get out the vote for conservative challenger. Did he have a conservative challenger in the primary?
Not in this past one, though.
Okay, there you go. So Donald Trump's
not really. I mean, he had somebody, but nobody who was organized and actually ran a campaign.
Yeah, so Donald Trump knows that. People are telling him, okay, Emmer's going to be around, probably. He didn't even have a challenger. So that's why he has to endorse people like that. He does it because long-term, like we were talking about earlier, the big long-term picture is Donald Trump wants.
But why not in the vein of what you're saying about why not just set the proposition in the stage and say, hey, I'm not going to endorse Emmer.
Oh, now he should not.
Right.
Prior, as he was trying to get the presidency back, that's why he did it. Moving forward, I would be telling him, he's dead to you now. You've got to try to replace him.
Got it. Yeah.
And explain why. And just he should do it. Remember Ross Perot and he'd buy time and he'd have his charts and everything. Donald Trump should do that.
Yeah. I think he'd be great at it.
Yeah. Not as the president, as Donald Trump, the candidate,
Why not as the president?
Well, because if he's just speaking specifically about Republicans, that's politicking, Republican politicking.
That's seen as frowned upon.
Yeah. And I think
I don't know, Dan. You're my guy, but I'm not in agreement with this one piece.
Okay.
And the only reason is They weren't afraid.
Well, I think there's.
They weren't afraid to use the office or the offices to politic when they had it.
I know.
And
but
this is the most dire threat to the security of the country.
It's a double standard. I know.
Yeah.
Remember the White House
Dan
coffees?
Schultz got some sacred honor here,
Yeah,
guys.
the White House coffees with Bill Clinton. With the Chinese and everything. They were doing it in the Rose Garden. They weren't supposed to do it, and they got caught. Yeah. So I think the Hatch Act applies to this, so I would recommend that he do it off-site. He goes over to the Blair House, and he can do it from there apparently, or like a hotel or whatever. Yeah. But but when he's out on the stump, he should be telling people now, I'm the president. I've offered legislation on this, and this. We need a budget, and the people who do not go along with me. The Republicans who do not go along with me, we need to replace them, period. Yeah. And then start naming names. Yeah. Because, this is, it's the survival of our nation at stake.
Right.
We're bankrupt.
Yeah.
We're bankrupt.
What do you think about that? Okay, well, let's just to pivot and what I was listening to. I saw an interview of him when he signed the executive order. I think it might have been a couple weeks back. But he was given a 30-minute press conference on this executive order, and he talked about the gold card as a way to have people pay for heightened level of what used to be the green card, and that whole
right,
program.
Yeah.
And it was the numbers, jived well. As $1 million per card. There's 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 millionaires out there that would love to be able to buy their way into America. No, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
There should be. Theoretically, there probably is.
Yeah.
That's a big chunk of that debt.
Yeah.
You're talking at least $10 trillion on the low end.
Yeah. Well, first, I got to tell you, I only saw the headlines. Yeah. I don't know any of the specifics, but I did see something this morning from last night where I don't know who it was, some woman who was holding up like a little whiteboard with "This is not big bold, not normal," pointing at Donald Trump. You think?
Yeah.
You're right. It's not normal. We don't want normal. Amen. Yeah. They just can't get outside their Democrat box in their head.
I know.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious.
Well, and it's such a blatant contradiction of their own political philosophy and worldview. If you say the whole system is guilty, if you say there's systemic injustice, if you say that the system is inherently racist, whatever you want to say about the system,
right?
Fine, say it. You can make those claims.
Right.
We would probably argue on a bunch of the points, but why are you so interested in preserving the system? Man?
Exactly.
It just makes no sense. It's one of the best examples of the logical fallacy, just the lack of critical thought and first principles.
Right.
That's
they've got these blinders on because their blinders are, I want more power, I want more political power, and they just can't think outside the box.
My thing is, hey, if you want to screw me, at least kiss me first and take me on a date. Yeah. Don't give me this story like. You just come out and say it, or come up with a better story.
Yeah,
that's what shocks me is they won't even take the time to come up with something that's more sneaky. They just keep saying the whole system is crooked,
right?
But we want to preserve it,
right?
It's like, what do you take me for?
Yeah, right.
Am I a dog? Am I stupid?
Yeah,
But they do think that.
I know. Yeah,
which is crazy, and that's why there's such a hostile kind. And people are like, well, the country's so polarized and everybody's so angry at each other. Well, the insult. The subtle, unspoken insult that's being flown here is intense.
Yeah.
You're basically telling me you can lie straight to my face and I'm an idiot, which makes me kind of subhuman.
Right.
Which in and of itself is a form of supremacy. And, and the whole Democrat, whether they're black, white, Latino, no matter what their race is, but the whole movement kind of has this air of superiority where they look at the Royce Whites and Dan Schultz like we're subhuman.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, if there's something that's racist, it's not racist, but that's as close as it gets.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And they do it to me too, even the black guys. Minnesota, my last election was a perfect example.
Right.
Amy Klobuchar, affluent, very educated, tenured professional, middle-aged white woman who comes from a very popular father, so there's a bit of
Yep.
local nepotism in it.
Yep.
But we don't want the black guy. He's
Right.
too extreme.
Right, right.
Donald Trump, nah, we don't want him. No,
Right, right.
he could say that something's wrong with the money. We don't even care about that. The money could be as corrupt as the day is long. It's like, come on, guys.
Really.
But all that being said, none of it matters unless people are willing to get involved.
Right.
And it's only going to change so far as people will get involved.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so precinctstrategy.com, they come to the website. They can probably get in contact with you relatively easily.
Yeah, very easy.
For now until it gets much bigger.
Yeah, Dan at precinctstrategy.com. Dan at precinctstrategy.com is my email address. And I tell people, if you send me an email that says, "Hey, Dan, I saw you on a podcast. What am I supposed to do now?" I'll probably respond, but it'll be like, go to my website and spend 30 minutes. I explain exactly what to do at my website. I mean, it's just real simple. This is 7th grader stuff. Find your local committee meeting, go to the meeting. And I have step-by-step directions on how to find it and what to do when you get there and what not to do, what to wear and what not to wear. And then take some people with you and then go to the state information page and read up on the terminology, because this has literally happened. I think it was in Michigan. Precinct committeemen are called precinct delegates in Michigan. In Texas, they're called precinct chairs, not precinct committeemen. But I just kind of use the generic term precinct committeeman. I've had people, I think, from both of those two states. This was years ago. I went to the meeting and I told them I wanted to become a precinct committeeman. And they looked at me and they said, "Well, we don't have precinct committeemen." And then they left thinking, what that guy Schultz said doesn't make any. And then he emailed me and they told me that. And I said, it's because you didn't do enough due diligence ahead of time to know, as I explain on my website, in my short little book, and in my podcast, the terminology differs from state to state. And
is that intentional?
It was intentional. Yeah. Absolutely. And see, maybe there was 40 rhinos there that night, and one new person comes in, and they don't have the terminology right. They're trying to embarrass him a little bit, hoping he'll never come back.
That's why it's best. Do you think it's intentional that they're called something different in every state, or is that
it's not
organically decentralized?
It's organically decentralized. Each state is.
Do you think that it would be a valuable thing for the RNC to bring a mandate down to uniform that language?
They wouldn't be able to bring a mandate down.
They can't do it
unless they change the rules of the Republican Party, which you can download at GOP.com. That said that you must now use this.
Do you think that would be worth it?
No, I wouldn't, because the state legislatures might countermand that. The state legislatures might say, if you're a recognized party of whatever type and you've got permanent ballot status, you must use this terminology. So the state statutes could override it.
True, but wouldn't that be another form? I'm just thinking about how, blocking and tackling would be, because probably deploy multiple strategies here, especially if the president has this as a focus.
The points you're bringing up are good.
Wouldn't it be to say, okay, we're going to create a more uniform lexicon here, so all of these people across the country can get better organized. They want to participate. We want them to participate.
Yeah.
Same way we want to bring civics back.
You know where that should be? That should be on the RNC's website right now.
Right.
They should have a list. This is what precinct committeeman is called, or the lowest voting member slot of in each state is called this, and this is the term of. I have a list like that I've created, but why hasn't the RNC done that?
They don't want.
They don't want anybody to know that it.
But
this should all be done by the RNC.
If you do that, and then let's say the local state legislator wants to counter that, isn't that a mandate to primary them?
Yeah,
at
exactly.
the local level?
Yep. Yeah. See, these are exactly the things we should be talking about. Yeah. Process.
Well,
we got to
go see the president, I think.
Yes.
We got to talk to Steve Stern.
Yes.
And our good friend Liz and some of the others that may be close enough. We got to set a meeting about this precinct strategy stuff.
The top priority of us conservatives should be filling all these vacancies as soon as possible. That's because like I said before, I say this at the end of my podcast. We can do all of these other things. We can have rallies. We can have speeches. We can form 501cs. We can have PACs. We can all those things. If you do all of that stuff, that's politics, but you don't do party politics, and we don't unite somewhere. The second graphic at my website shows all of these issue groups, Tea Partiers, Second Amendment people, right to life people. You got to take all the people in those movements that are Republican and they agree with our platform and unite somewhere every month, our local Republican Party committees. Why? So we elect better Republicans.
Yeah.
We defeat the incumbents in the primaries. Yeah. That should be our number one focus. Why? Why should we get into the real ball game of politics where you live? It's to help Donald J. Trump make America great again. He needs us. Yeah. The best way to help Donald Trump is not by cutting a check. The best way is cut a check, buy the swag and wear it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But paramount, we've got to take over the party or we're going to lose the republic, in my opinion, based on what I know about history.
So, well, cut a check and come follow up on your investment.
Yes. Yeah, right.
You get to oversee it, actually.
Yeah. I coined this on War Room with Bannon. I said, don't just be a donor to the party, become an owner of it. Yeah. The people who own the party, it's just people, but they're in it. They're in the apparatus. That's what we got to do.
Amen. Dan Schultz, everybody, the great Dan Schultz. Make sure you go to precinctstrategy.com. That's precinctstrategy.com. Get connected with other people in your area. Get connected with Dan Schultz. We're going to do our best to get the Precinct Strategy Ask request up on the Royce White for Senate campaign as soon as possible. That's a great idea. You should have told me that last time. Maybe you told David we didn't get that done last time. We're going to make sure we get it done for this campaign.
Yep.
It's going to be right there. Module 2. Boom. Royce White for Senate.
Right.
Precinct Strategy right there underneath. And we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your work. Don't be discouraged. I mean, Dan's been at this for a long time, and it is somewhat disappointing to hear that it's still only half full.
Yep. Numbers don't lie.
They don't lie. And, part of it is it's a psyop, right, where politics has become so commercialized, so much media, so much talk. I mean, there's more talk than ever.
Yeah.
More talk than any time in human history. Everybody's talking. Everybody's talking everywhere all day. I saw a graphic the other day that said from the 1990s, during the internet boom, to 2025, the amount of time that people spend on the internet has went from zero, effectively 1% of their time in the early 90s when there was just starting to be computers, to 60+% of their time.
Yeah.
60% of people's time is spent on. So it's no one, and this is nationwide.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder why people aren't in the party. They're on the internet.
Yeah.
And so they'll criticize, say, well, you're doing a podcast. Yes, we are doing a podcast. We're talking about it.
Yeah.
So you will go.
But we're using
so
it
you'll
to
go.
get you
That's right.
into the I had a friend many years ago when I got started on this, and he was an IT guy, and he called it the meat space. There's virtual space and then the meat face. And what meat face means is it's flesh and blood. It's you're doing something actually instead of virtually on your computer. But we got to use we got all the tools that we need to organize and unite politically for real political action where we live in the best way possible. We have everything. The only thing holding us back is we don't have enough people actually doing it.
Yeah, we certainly have a great leader in Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
It's a great time in American history, the golden era. And look, like I said, Donald
Great
Trump's
time
doing
to be alive.
Donald Trump's doing so much so fast.
Yeah.
We're not criticizing. I'm
not criticizing him.
Not
at
criticizing
all.
what he's doing at all. We're knocking over bowling pins left and right.
Yep.
But there's a shelf life.
Yeah.
And he knows it, and we all know it. At the end of this 4 years, if we don't get this part right, this grassroots organization, we're going to fall back into the same problem we had. And that's they're counting on that, actually.
Yes,
you can see
right.
it.
And we can counter that so easily.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. I appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And make sure we'll get you back soon.
Okay.
For everybody else out there, Thanks for joining us again. It's been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, Family and Friends Edition. The great Dan Schultz, Precinct Strategy. Go to precinctstrategy.com. Help us join the fight, join the movement, join the party. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, Real America's Voice for the Royce White Show before War Room with the great Steve Bannon. We appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. The fight continues. As always, Godspeed.
Do you have time for
Go ahead.
one more comment?
No, yes, go ahead, Dan.
And if you do this, believe me, it's true. You will feel so good about yourself that you're taking action, and you're going to meet some really great people, and it's fun, quote unquote. It is fun. It's meaningful. You'll feel really good about yourself. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. That's it for me, guys. We'll see you next week on Monday. Godspeed. Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees, or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.